Good morning. Is anybody there?
Good morning. We're here. We can hear you.
Okay. This is Humboldt County Sheriff Mike Allen.
Thanks, Mike.
You know how to mute yourself again?
Go ahead and start recording. There we go.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We still got about 1 more minute, so we'll give everybody an opportunity to get on the line. And you can mute yourselves, and if we have any problems, we can mute you as well. So just hang tight for about another minute. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome you all to the Interstate Mutual Aid Committee meeting. Today's June 15th, 2022. If we could please get a roll call, Terry.
Good morning. We'll start with our voting membership. Vice Chair Jeannie Freeman,
Here.
Mike Allen. I heard you earlier. Ron Bollier. Todd Carlini,
Present.
Colonel Brett Compton,
Here.
Kelly Echevarria,
Here.
Mike Heidemann,
Present.
Jeremy Hines, Sam Hicks, Carrie Lee, Bill Merwin, Don Pelt,
I'm here.
Matt Peterson, Deb Pierce, Ken Quiner, Billy Samuels,
Present.
Jerome Tushbent, Jim Walker,
Here.
Mike Wilson. Said Ron was here. Thank you, sir. We have 10. Our non-voting membership, Chair John Backadall,
Here.
Samantha Laddick said she would not be in attendance today. And Eric Wilson.
Here.
And we have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll close agenda item number 1. Moving on to number 2, public comments for discussion only. So no action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the chair. Comments will not be restricted based upon viewpoint. So we've got to wait a few minutes here for the line to catch up on our streaming. So if anybody's calling in, we'll give you a few more seconds here to be able to give any public comment. In the room, do we have any public comment? So I've got one. So this is John Backadall. So we have submitted a BDR for changes to verbiage specifically on where the current statute states that there would be volunteers eligible for the IMAC disbursement or deployment of personnel. We are working on that to submit verbiage to have it changed to where we would be able to have paid staff under the IMAC. And we'll talk more about that once it gets agendized, but I just want everybody to know that we are working on a BDR for the change in verbiage to have paid personnel for deployments. Any other public comment out in Zoom land?
John, this is Billy.
Yes, sir.
2 things. One, I'm asking if we can change, when you guys change the roster, if you can identify the chairs, the co-chairs, like it doesn't even have your name on there, maybe not under voting membership, but then under the other people that would normally be there, like we have on the other meetings as well. Again, it's just a visual thing, but it doesn't even have your name as part of the membership or part of the committee under the roster. Do you guys see that?
I do. I appreciate the comment. We can't act on anything specifically for this, but we'll address that.
Nope, I figured that. And the second thing was, again, not acting upon anything. I believe it was this committee that we talked about how we were going to do a drill and talk about, even if it's a mock drill on requests and resources, whether it's coming from the financial side, the federal side, or within the states, just so we can kind of have that kind of process. And it's more of a documentation / training issue. And I don't see that anywhere on any of the agendas. And hopefully we get it by the end of this year.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other public comment in Zoom land or on the phone? All right, we'll close agenda item number 2. Moving on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes. This is for discussion and action. If we could get the committee to review those minutes, if you haven't already, from the December 15th, 2021 committee meeting. And then we just need to either discuss them or get a motion on those minutes from December, please.
Billy Samuel, so moved.
Yeah. Chief Carlini for the record, second.
We got a motion from Chief Billy Samuels and a second from Chief Todd Carlini. Do we have any further discussion on the minutes?
Here's a Jim Walker. I had one small change. I
Go
wanted,
ahead.
on page 5, I'm looking at the combined things here. Of the minutes, it says my name is Jimmy Walker. I haven't gone by Jimmy Walker since I was about 6 years old. And so,
Dynamite. All right, so we'll have that change reflected. Billy, you're good with that change in your motion still?
Yes, even though I do like Jimmy Walker, but I get where he's coming from. So yes, with that motion, change the name back to Jim Walker.
Thank you, sir. Todd, you're still good with your second?
I'm good with the second, but also I would prefer Jimmy, but that's okay.
All right, any further discussion on the minutes?
well, I think we need to make that an agendized item before we make a change like that.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Hello, John. This is Mike Allen, and I got to abstain. I was not present.
Thank you, sir. So we'll have Mike Allen as an abstention. So motion passes with 1 abstention. All right, agenda item number, find it here. Agenda item number 4. So announcement of the new tribal interstate mutual aid system IMAC participants. So this is for discussion only. I just wanted to make an announcement that we do have another tribal participant. We have the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California that has passed a resolution to opt in to this interstate mutual aid system, to which this committee helps oversee. So we now have 5 tribal partners that are engaged. The other 4, for the record, are Reno Sparks Indian Colony, Urington Paiute, Las Vegas Paiute, Pyramid Lake Paiute, and now we have our 5th adding Washoe Tribe. As an additional note, we are working with the tribes, and our NTEC staff, specifically Jay and Josie, are using this as their primary mission when they go out and visit with the tribes, is sharing the information and the tribes that have already opted into the interstate mutual aid system. And we're trying to get all of our federally recognized tribes involved with this system. And we've also not had any members opt out. So all of the counties are still members, and now we're up to 5 tribes. So does anybody have any additional comment on agenda item number 4?
Yes, John, Chief Carlini for the record. When your staff comes out to hold those meetings with the Washoe Tribe, since a big portion of that's in our jurisdiction, could you let me know so I could maybe either tag along or certainly at least be aware?
Absolutely. What I'll start having all of them do is reach out to not only the tribal leadership, but the county emergency manager, and let them know that they'll be in the area for any jurisdiction that they enter. So you all have awareness.
This is a kid from Washoe Tribe, but I'll let you know also, Todd.
Thank you, Ken.
So for the record, we do have Ken Quinter. I don't think he replied as being here, so he is here. Thanks for being here, Ken. All right, any other further comment on agenda item number 4? Hearing none, we'll close that one, move on to agenda item number 5. And this is the introduction of our new committee member. So we've invited Fire Chief Matt Peterson from Elko County to be a member of this committee. And I don't think Matt made it onto this call. He had a conflict with this, but he will be another one of the committee members as we move forward throughout the rest of his 2-year term on this committee. Does anybody have any further comments on the appointment of Fire Chief Matt Peterson, Elko County? Excellent. Close agenda item number 5, move on to number 6. So this is the committee bylaws update. This is another discussion item only. So I will quickly go over and provide an update on the status of the committee bylaws following the last meeting and the signature of these on, or the bylaw review of March 29th during that committee meeting. So specifically, your packet item number 6 is our current bylaws. Jeannie Freeman, who is the vice chair, and I got together just over a week ago and went through them, reviewed them. We made one subtle change to them before signing them and making them the current active bylaws. And that was one of the line items referred to he or she, but then immediately right below it, it only said he. So we updated it to where they both say he or she throughout the appointment information on the bylaws. So there is no discussion on this. There's no voting on this. We can talk about anything you guys want, but you already approved the bylaws at the last meeting. We just wanted to make sure we had signed copies by both the chair and the vice chair so that they are considered active in our file. So do we have any additional comments, questions, concerns on the bylaws and agenda item number 6? Excellent. Hearing none, we'll close that. We'll go on to agenda item number 7, and this is for the approval of the IMAC Policies and Procedures Guide. So we're going to have Eric Wilson with the Division of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, Logistics Chief here. He's going to review and discuss the IMAC Policies and Procedures Guide. The committee will determine whether to approve the IMAC Policies and Procedures as presented or amend the guide prior to approval. This is for discussion as well as possible action. So we'll be looking for a motion on this after Eric gives you a quick update on these. Eric?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, John. I sent out the new PNPs. It incorporated all the suggestions and changes from the last meeting. I haven't received any other issues, questions, or suggestions since then. So I'm wondering if there's any now at this meeting.
So in your packet, agenda item number 7 is the attachment, has the current policies and procedures as presented. The edits were made that were requested. No further comment since the last meeting was presented. Does anybody have any further comment now on this draft so we could have it, hopefully get a motion and get these approved and get these off the table as well?
John, this is Jeannie Freeman for the record. I actually have a question for Chief Samuels. When you look through this guide, does it include the information that you would have needed based on how last year's response with the Caldor fire went and that request for resources coming up from this other jurisdiction? Does this book assist with that?
It should. I was actually reading it right now. The one thing that's a little different when the requests come from either NDF versus DEM, the funding is a little bit different when it comes to county reimbursement. So again, I don't know if that's really addressed in here. I was trying to skim it real quick before you guys actually talked about it and voted on it, so I can actually read it right now. Isn't that how we're supposed to do this? We're supposed to read this stuff before. But I think it might, Jeannie. So if it doesn't, I'll send my suggestions back then. Maybe we can make another agenda item in the next 3rd or 4th quarter if that's okay with this committee.
Yeah, or maybe Eric can you guys respond to that question? I'm realizing that the funding source or the request and where it comes from would have a difference, but if this became something that was requested from the state jurisdiction, we had some of those funding challenges, like we hadn't done that before. We hadn't requested something from down south to come this far north in that sense. So would it be addressed?
Real quick, before we do that, Jeannie, this Chief Lewis, you also from Nye County submitted resources during that event. Any comment you want to add about Jeannie's question with Chief Billy Samuel's questions or answers? You have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm actually reviewing it at the same time as Billy, but I think the majority of it will meet our needs, Jeannie. And but I just want to read the fine print just to make sure it captures everything we would need.
Granted, it's not like we're etching it in stone. We can't, on paper and Word, we can go back and agendize it in another meeting. I just wanted to see, since we're moving into our next fire season, I don't know that they ever end anymore, but as we move into the next hot season, I should say, just wanting to see if this has that caveat is available or that makes it work easier.
I think we would make it work with ease.
Perfect, thank you.
From the DEM perspective, and then I'll give Eric a chance to add any information he wants to add. Whether your agency submits your billing to NDF or DEM, we would work with you. Hopefully we get CC'd on things that are submitted to NDF just so we have awareness. And then, like, for instance, we have a current issue where from Coldor Fire, some of the stuff did go to NDF, some of it does come to DEM, and we're still working out the issues and the steps to make sure each state agency is getting the appropriate stuff to which they're going to fulfill the payment on. So I agree with what Chief Lewis said, that I think the basis is here, and any additional changes that we need, it is a living document. We can make those changes as we move forward, especially in the AAR process. After every event, I'm assuming we're going to find something that we could have done better and we can apply it to policy and procedure. Anything you want to add on that funding process?
I agree with that. We can also confer with our fiscal and grant section as well for any questions that we have or the jurisdictions may have on that.
What about from the NDF side? Any comment, Ron?
No, I would just say, you know, if you're not sure on where the request for reimbursement goes, just send it to one or the other so we at least can track it and get it to where it needs to go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Lenita Minky for the record, what I would say is send it to both because we had some get stuck in one shop or the other, and that obviously delays the reimbursement process. So if there's any question whatsoever, you know what belongs with NDF, any question whatsoever, send it to both, and that way we'll each have visibility on it. We can immediately react to it.
And John, this is Billy. This is what I was discussing in that public comment, is how we can challenge this with maybe an exercise or a drill that the state's requesting something from the county. And I'm not saying it's the state's fault. The county is just to blame when it comes to our policies and procedures that we have to follow to make it mix with your guys's. So that is what I was kind of asking, if we can set up a drill of some sort. And it's mostly our fiscal people. Operationally, we're just going to go and take care of it. It's the fiscal side and the challenges that we face for the next 6 months is what I'd like to nip in the bud earlier than later.
100% agree. This is John again. We've got a number of exercises coming up through the end of the year, so we can make this an objective and incorporate into one of those pretty easily, I'm sure. So everybody's had a chance to kind of look through this. Is anybody comfortable with making a motion, or do we want to table the approval until the next the next scheduled meeting to where you can have more time? I'm not in favor of tabling things over and over. We've tabled this 3 times already. Is the document at a point to where somebody's comfortable with making a motion, or is the motion going to be that we hold on?
Hey,
John,
John.
go ahead, Jim.
This is Jim Walker again. Well, not that I'm tooting my own horn, but I actually read this before the meeting today. I had to do something this morning while I was waiting for the meeting to start. But anyway, I did have a couple of comments on it when I was reading through it. The first one was just a formatting thing. Under the IMAC Participants and Responsibilities section 1D, the number 3 is kind of hidden inside number 2, so it's just a little bit confusing when I was reading through it, trying to see that. But,
what page?
Page 5. Page 5. Page 5, right at the top, section D has subsections 1 and 2, and then 3 is kind of buried in there. So
Copy that. I see that now. Thank you.
But a little bit more substantial of that, going to page 8. Down at the bottom of page 8, under section 4, statewide, part D. That section seemed a little bit confusing to me. I think it's just a wording thing. I think that just the way it's worded, I think is a little bit confusing, because it should say, I think that the from that's in the first line there, request capabilities needed to respond to the emergency from when. I think that from is supposed to be at the end. It said from one unaffected regions of the state and state mutual aid and that kind of stuff. And so I don't know if it made sense to everybody else, but it just seemed a little confusing to me.
This is Jeannie Freeman for the record. In reading 4D, that verbiage makes sense to me.
Okay.
Because it's request capability needed to respond to the emergency from the point, like from when regional mutual aid has been exhausted or is anticipated to be exhausted. So that's when that request can be made, is from that point or when it's anticipated to be. So maybe it's just from the point of time when, I think that's maybe where it's coming from. There, maybe it feels like there's a couple words missing to make that from make sense.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the way I was reading it, but and I think that I guess I was a little bit, it just seemed a little abrupt at the end there. It said will require reimbursement and then unaffected regions of the state. I seemed like there was a word missing there or something too, reimbursement from unaffected regions from the state or something like that.
So Lenita, for the record, I would propose that if we take out the word from, so it should read request capability needed to respond to the emergency when regional mutual aid has been exhausted or is anticipated to be exhausted. If we took out the word from, does that clean up the language?
It does for me, but I think it's fine. It's fine either way if it makes sense to everybody else.
Kelly Echeverria, I agree with Lenita's revision.
All right, so it sounds like there is a couple of grammatical things still. So we'll put it on the next agenda. If I can get a motion for that everybody submits their recommended changes to Eric directly within the next 10 business days, so that this doesn't end up to where we're up against a timeline again and nobody's reviewed it. So if we can please get you guys to review this timely and get it back to us in the next 10 days, and then we'll blind CC and send out the latest draft to everybody so they have it well before the next meeting, and we can get the issues and grammaticals fixed to where everybody is satisfied and we can actually get these things approved.
Hey, John, this is Jeannie Freeman for the record. When is our next meeting? Is not scheduled for a while though. I guess my question is do we feel like these word changes make a change that causes this to not be functional the way that it is, or is it, it doesn't change the intent, it doesn't change the operation of the document?
Brett Thompson for the record. I'll make a motion that we approve with one modification, page 8 for Delta, remove the word from as delineated by Lenita, and approve the remainder of the document.
Jeannie Freeman for the record, I second that motion.
All right, so we got a first by Colonel Thompson, a second by Jeannie Freeman. Is there further discussion?
This is Jim Walker again. I hate to throw things out still. I just had one more thing is on page 10 at the very bottom, says it's the explanation of FEMA state and territorial, tribal, and local rates in Appendix C. That's actually Appendix D. So I'd recommend that change being included as well.
Thank you. Are you good with that amendment to your motion, Brett?
I am.
All right, so we have that included in the motion. Jeannie, are you good with that on your second?
Yes, sir.
Any other further discussion?
Yes, Chief Carlene Eastwork. On on page 10, not a correction, but more of a question, because this was an issue that I think occurred last year. And that was on the assurances of resource typing and resources that, from my understanding, showed up that were not appropriate for the mission. And I'm not sure who's going to be the resource police on this, and it's certainly not something that I want to see holding this up, because I think we need to continue to move this forward. Every time we apply this, I'm sure we're going to find things that need to be changed. But I just wanted to mention how important it is with the resource typing piece of this. And this is not just moving resources from southern Nevada to northern Nevada. This is being able to move resources statewide. And I know that was our first run at it. And we certainly appreciated that effort from southern Nevada, but we've got to make sure we continue to look at it as this resource capacity being moved anywhere in the state, which is why I'm back on making sure this resource typing is done correctly. And like I said, I don't know who the resource police is going to be, or the typing police is going to be, but I think we need to have an effort there at some point to make sure that all the right resources that are listed are typed appropriately.
So Chief, it's Lenita. Can you please clarify the situation that you're talking about so that we can dig a little deeper into that?
Yeah, I'd probably do that offline if you don't mind, Lenita.
Yeah, so the only thing I will say, and it's appropriate for the committee, it's up to the agency that owns the resource to type the equipment. And that's where we have challenges. That's a nationwide understanding that when you look at the FEMA Resource Library typing tool, that there's an understanding that if you call it a type 3, it's a type 3 whatever, or a type 2 whatever. The challenge is that onus is on the agency providing the resource, not the agency activating or receiving the resource. So any feedback offline would be appreciated and appropriate as to how we can refine that to make sure that you're getting the resources that you need.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that with you offline.
Thank you.
And this is Billy. There's, obviously there's stuff coming from the south. We don't really deal with a lot of the wireless stuff and the radio communications. And so that kind of tough. The radio interoperability was difficult. Even if we brought our medics up there and they brought double rounds of narcotics for EMS calls, but we have no way to restock those if that happened if we actually use them. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that the agency submitting the resources is going to bring. But I don't think it's ever going to be flawless because there's so many different, even threads of hose is different, or size of hose and pump capabilities and phantom pumpers and hydrants from a 4-inch to a 4.5-inch to a 5-inch steamer cap. So there's, again, hopefully if we do come up there or you guys come down here, we're able to kind of pick some of your guys' equipment and supplies up and vice versa, that we have a cache available for you guys. But I agree with you, Chief Carlini, that that resource toolkit will help us on typing wise. So I appreciate that bringing it up.
This is Scott Lewis. May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Scott.
So what is the resource guide that we should reference in regarding typing for the Chief Carlini's concern? Because there's so many different, they have subtle differences between those resource types. Maybe we just adopt a certain reference material or create our own and offer that as the template.
Chief Lewis, it's Lenita. I appreciate that question, and Eric and I are in agreement that the FEMA Resource Library typing tool is the national standard, and that would be something that we would use. We're using the National Qualifications Position Task Book, so we're really looking at that national level so that whether we're receiving resources or sending resources out, there's a commonality with using that Resource Library typing tool.
Understood.
Thanks for the question, Scott. And that is referenced at the bottom of the first paragraph on page 10. And it tells you to go to Appendix C to get that information. So when you guys get a chance, look at that site. I want to bring us back to the agendized item, specifically on getting this policy and procedure approved, or with the amendments approved. So we have a first and we have a second. A lot of good discussion on things we need to look at, and make future changes on. Is there any further discussion to the interstate mutual aid system operating procedures? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Are there any abstentions? Excellent. Motion passes unanimously with the edits. Thank you very much. Going on to so that closes agenda item number 7, going on to number 8, presentation on real world events. So this is discussion only. Lenita McGee, the Ops Chief at DEM, Homeland Security. The committee will discuss real world incidents and events occurring from November 2021 to May of 2022, a 6-month period for which DEM deployed resources to assist local jurisdictions. Ms. McGee will also provide an update on DEM's efforts to field an incident management assistance team as set forth in IRS 414.080. The floor is yours.
Good morning, all. Anita McGee. For the record, you have an additional item that was sent out yesterday and again this morning with the duty officer responses within the state. That was based on a past request by Jeannie to make sure that we're documenting and for your visibility. So you should all have that graph that shows you the 44 responses that occurred. Moving on to the agenda items, the support that we provided to local jurisdictions from November to May of 2022 included deploying resources to assist on New Year's Eve in Las Vegas, the Electric Daisy Carnival. We had winter weather response in December. We had the Pro Bowl and the NFL draft, also both in Las Vegas, to make sure that we had a state liaison on scene to be able to react and coordinate quickly in the event the need should arise and something would have happened at any of those planned events. Do we have any questions on those real world responses or support? All right, moving on to the incident management assistance team. We have our last meeting this afternoon to finalize the standard operating guidelines for that team as it will exist. Once those are approved by the chain of command here at DEM, those will be pushed out simultaneously to the listserv with the application for the incident management assistance teams so that we can begin those. It goes without saying that we have deployed single resources for the mobile vaccination units and other planned events here in the state. Without the standard operating guidelines in place, we want to make sure that those are shored up so that we can act accordingly. We have credentialed 2 different people in 3 separate positions in the type 3 all hazards incident management team world. So we're really excited about that. And we have more individuals that are working on it, which is part of the reason we had folks supporting those planned events, was to be able to sign task books and offer up those mentoring and guidance capabilities. We have a short team that's requested to support South Lake Tahoe or State Line during upcoming New Year's Eve events. And we're working with Las Vegas Metro in the event they're going to want some support for the NFL Super Bowl that's coming up in 2024. That is the end of my report. Do we have any questions?
So this is John, real quick. Can you tell the group what task books they're being certified to so everybody understands?
Yeah, so the task books again are the national level. So it's the FEMA National Qualification System All Hazards Position Task Book. So those are applicable from type 1 to type 5 level. We're using them at the type 3 level again for that consistency nationwide, so that when we send resources out of state, there's an expectation they'll be able to perform to a certain level. And when we ask for resources in state, we'll have that same common ground and that same expectation of performance. Any other questions?
Yes, question, Chief Carlini. Anita, did I hear you say you had a request already for the New Year's Eve event, South Lake Tahoe?
Yes, sir. Chief Lindgren has asked us to consider sending a short team up to South Lake Tahoe to support their personnel and also providing coaching and mentoring capabilities so that some of their personnel can go through the task book process as well.
Okay, thank you.
We expect that request to be pushed through the normal process, Chief, but the informal request has come via Chief Lindgren, and we'll make sure that he follows the process to put in that formalized request.
Copy. You're reading my mind. We've worked so hard to try to make sure everyone follows these processes with requests. So you're dealing with only 17 counties and not 1,700 agencies.
Absolutely. Understood. And we'll make sure that that request is formalized, Chief.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
All right, excellent. Appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and close agenda item number 8, move on to agenda number 9, approval of the IMAS reimbursement form. So this is for discussion and possible action. Eric Wilson will again brief the committee on these documents and talk about the IMAS reimbursement forms as discussed at the IMAC meeting on December 15th of 2021. The committee will determine whether to approve the IMAS reimbursement forms as presented or amend the forms prior to approval. Eric?
Good morning. Thank you, Eric Wilson, for the record. For agenda item number 9, you should have 3 attachments. One is a checklist. The other is the signature form. And then the third is the actual reimbursement form. In the packet that you received, all the tabs are printed out. So it looks like a pretty hefty form, but when you see the soft copy, most of it that's printed out are actually tabs at the bottom. This is the same forms that were presented at the last meeting. I haven't received any comments or issues. Are there any comments, issues, or questions at this time?
So Lenita McGee, for the record, I will make one comment, Eric, based on real world Caldor fire reimbursements for the information and education of our folks on the phone, which was when we have a jurisdiction that submits more than one package. For instance, they submitted a package for fire response, they submitted a package for law enforcement response, they submitted for animal services. Unfortunately, when they cut and pasted, it messed up some of the formulas. So you got to make sure when you're submitting multiple packages that you start from the beginning again without messing up the formulas. Otherwise, the calculations become way off. So if you can make sure that your finance folks have visibility on that, that would help. We ended up over reimbursing an agency, which is never a problem for you guys, except we got to get the money back by quite a bit of money based on those calculations being changed in error. So please be aware of that when you're submitting multiple reimbursement packages.
For everybody's awareness, this is John for the record. These are the same forms tweaked a little bit that we use in the IMAC process when we deploy resources out of state. So it's a standardized process. That's why it looks like it does. It's nothing we created necessarily. We just Nevadanized it for intrastate use. So it is a formalized process. It's already been used and worked nationally for several years.
John, this is Jeannie Freeman for the record. Once this committee approves these forms, whether it's today or it's some other time, and this information, how is this information going to be distributed to the 17 counties and the tribal partners who have signed on to the IMAS?
Great question. So John Backendall for the record, we're going to immediately send them out for everybody's use. They have basic instructions with them. Per Billy's public comment, we'll have this incorporated into an exercise later on in the year. And then we now have dates that we're getting ready to release to everybody on the 3 public workshops that we're going to do for a week long in the north, the south, and the west. And what that entails is starting with the THIRA and ending up with an integrated preparedness plan by Friday. And then you are grant ready when your EMPG grant applications come out the following year. So in that process, we're going to have all of our different sections there throughout the week doing short presentations on important projects within their section. So mitigation will be there. We're going to have finance there. We're going to have grants there. And so we will make sure that Eric is there or someone from his side with logistics that can help discuss these forms further and answer any questions at that time in person. So we plan on bringing a team to a week long down south, out in Elko, and then here in Carson City, and do presentations for anything and everything DEM does over a week. And again, hopefully it becomes a more successful process for you and for us.
Great, thank you. One of the things that I make a suggestion for is that because these are not likely to be forms that many jurisdictions will use frequently, well, I'm going to knock on wood because Nevada's been hit really hard the last few years, but when we look at these forms, if there's an ability to have a sample form that is filled out in addition to the forms, it just kind of gives people a starting point because they do look different than the forms that they use to apply for their grant funding or the reimbursements and stuff that they do. So if there's something that can be shown just as an example when that training happens, that they can see samples done, that would be helpful to jurisdictions, because this is one of those things, like, you're likely to train somebody and they're going to attend, but they may not be the person who would necessarily fill out this form. And so for them to be able to take it back to their finance person to assist with that process, I think would be really valuable. And an example can help go a long way.
So Lenita McGee, for the record, Jeannie, that's a fantastic idea. One of the things that we did the last time as a best practice for Caldor Fire was we obviously knew what resources had been deployed. So Eric and I teamed up and sent these documents directly to the emergency management coordinator with our points of contact to make sure that we had that. So it was a way for us to elevate it to the top of their inbox without you guys having to go back and look for those forms.
That's great. Thanks, Lenita.
I'll turn it over to Eric again to make a comment, since he's the one that's in charge of this.
Eric Wilson for the record. I've also talked to our fiscal section, and they're more than willing to also assist in training with local jurisdictions as well.
All right, so love the idea. We gave samples with the EMPG work plan, so we'll do the same thing with this. I think it's really beneficial to see how you can fill it out. So Eric, if you can work on that, and then we will get the sample completed. We will be there for technical assistance to make sure the jurisdictions are filling out their stuff appropriately through our finance team. We'll build it through the exercise later this year, as well as presenting at the public workshops in the northeast and west parts of Nevada, our 3 regions. So any more discussion on the reimbursement forms? Do I have a motion to approve the forms as presented?
Jeannie Freeman for the record. I make a motion to approve the IMAS reimbursement forms as presented.
Thank you. We have a first. We have a second.
Jim
Elliot
Walker, I'll second.
Maria.
All right, we got Jim Walker for a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Hi.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Excellent. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Close agenda item number 9. Moving on to number 10. This would be NAC 414A regulation review and reporting revisions as required by statute. We have to do this on an annual basis to review these elements. So contained in each year to repost as outlined in NAC 414A.050, due by June 30th of each year. That's the importance of this meeting. So both Eric and Lenita will be presenting throughout these sub items A through F. So we'll start with Lenita with agenda item 10A.
So Lenita McGee, for the record, the 2 declared emergencies that we had here in the state during the fiscal year were the Caldor fire and the snow event in December of last year. That is it for item A. Any questions? All right, item B is undeclared emergencies and disasters in the state that were monitored by DEM. That was the Nye County storm that occurred that Chief Lewis is intimately familiar with. Any questions? Passing to my colleague, Eric.
Eric Wilson for the record. There should be an attachment, agenda item number 10, which shows the 4 resource requests which were requested through the system and fulfilled within the state during the last fiscal year. The status of those requests is that 24 and 27 are standing with NDF, and 47 and 72 have been paid. There were many other resource requests for the Caldor Fire, but they were funded through the Nevada Division of Forestry Wildland Fire Protection Program. The resources that were requested are also on there. It was 1 water tender for assignment to Carson City, a Southern Task Force liaison up here in the SCOC, 4 law enforcement personnel for Carson City Community Center, security detail, and activation state fire marshal also for the SCOC. Are there any questions?
All right, under D for you.
That was the same.
All that included both. So C and D were both included in that update under agenda item number 10. So now we'll go to letter E, back to Lenita.
Lenita McGee, for the record, resources requested through IMAC were none. We did not request any resources. However, we received IMAC resources from the state of California. So it was unique in that we didn't request them. They chose to send them, certainly in conjunction with our needs. And that was based on the response to the Caldor fire. The reimbursement request that was submitted was $534,541.61. There is one outstanding resource request that we just recently received. So we expect that number to increase once that's processed by our financial arm, and then we'll update the financials accordingly. Those are all the IMAC requests that were made in the last fiscal year. End of report.
For letter F, Eric Wilson for the record. We sent out several requests to update the inventory of resources throughout the state inside Web EOC, and I received several.
All right, so we've gone through item number 10, A through F, presentations by both Eric and Lenita. This is for discussion and possible action. So if anybody has any recommended changes that they want, any of these reporting mechanisms, we can document that, put it under a vote to see if we want to move forward with that. Otherwise, we can leave it at discussion. We don't necessarily need to take action on anything. So I'd like to open this to discussion to all of you on agenda item number 10.
Question, Chief Carlini. Lenita, on item E, the EMAC request that you said is an additional one, is that the one I'm questioning?
No, sir, it is not. Yours is with our finance section right now, Chief, based on your email, I think from Monday where it went in. And as soon as we're done with this meeting, I'll go follow up on your behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just for everybody's awareness, agenda item number E, do you want to tell them who that was and who came over, just so they understand?
The one that's outstanding.
No, the EMAC when Pappas came over.
Oh, Megan Pappas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we had was representatives from the state of California EMAC group. So my counterparts in the state of California were deployed to the State Emergency Operations Center. And then they coordinated the deployment of additional assets to support the mega shelter that was taking place in the city of Reno that was being run by state of California assets with the support of Washoe County.
Just for clarification there, so that was the one, Chief Carlini, you were asking about. It was actually a California resource that came over to us. Any other comments, questions from anybody on the committee? Any recommendations that we need to take under consideration for a vote? All right. Hearing none, we'll close agenda item number 10 as information only then. Thank you very much. So we are down to our, oh, I'm sorry. I can't close agenda item number 10. I got some stuff at the bottom there. The IMAS system updates. So agenda item number 10, the second part down there. We have letter A, the number of political subdivisions who have opted out of the system is 0. Moving on to letter B, the number of tribal nations who have opted into the system is now 5. And then agenda item 10C down under IMAS, Lenita.
The number on that is 0.
So the number and status of EMAC deployments, so 0 from the state of Nevada. And then agenda item 10D under IMAS system updates, outreach conducted by DEM to participants regarding policies and procedures. So again, Eric Wilson has sent those out a number of times. We've now submitted, you have 10 days to get us back to comments, and we'll make any additional edits for the next meeting if we need to. We'll agendize it. If not, we've approved it, so we're good to go moving forward. And we're working with our tribal participation through NTEC. So any comments now that we've covered both the upper half of 10 and the lower half of 10? Eric?
For the record, Eric Wilson, we're also working we're going to be working through the school district because we have a staff member that's now on the state committee for school safety. So we're going to try to raise awareness of IMAS through that avenue as well.
Thank you for that information. I believe that came up previously during a meeting.
Lenita McGee for the record. Just for additional awareness, we expect a higher than average hurricane season. One of the things we can do through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact is create mission ready packages to be able to deploy resources and personnel if anyone's interested in working with us on that, please reach out to me personally, and we'll work through that process to be ready for both hurricane, fire season, and anything else that Mother Nature throws at us this year.
John, this is,
Real quick, Jeannie, that qualifies under agenda item IMAS System Updates 10C, just so you're aware. Go ahead.
so John, Jeannie Freeman from the record. How many tribal nations have not opted in yet to IMAS?
So we have 27 tribes. So we have 22 federally recognized tribes that have not opted in yet.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information.
Yep. Any other comments, questions on 10? Excellent. Close agenda item number 10 for the second time. We'll move on to agenda item number 11, public comment. For discussion only, no action may be taken on a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the chair. Comments will not be restricted based on viewpoint. We've got a delay here on the system for our live stream going to YouTube and every other fashion. Do we have any public comments in the room? Any public comments from any of the committee members on the Zoom, live stream, phone calls?
Hello, John. This is Sheriff Allen. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Sheriff, go ahead.
Okay. I do have public comment. I want to thank everybody on the committee. This will be my last meeting. One of my goals as sheriff up in Humboldt County was to get a full-time emergency manager. We accomplished that, I believe, a year ago. That person is Carol Lynn. Some people might know her from CAP out of Vegas, but she has relocated to Humboldt County, and she, I guess, needs to be selected for this committee. But once again, I think this DEM in general has made some huge strides. I've been involved in the DEM process since Frank Siracusa and Kamala Karmazzi has been there, and I've worked a committee with Chief Carlini on the Critical Infrastructure Committee years ago, and I just really want to extend my thanks and appreciation to all the work you guys have done over the years. And I will miss you, but I decided not to run for sheriff anymore. So after 40 years in law enforcement, I think it's time to do a little bit more golfing. So thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Sheriff, and congratulations on your retirement. That did open up something that, since you brought it up, we are creating an application for this committee is how we're going to send it out to a starting point. And it's going to go out on the listserv, and we're going to take applicants of who wants to be on this committee. There'll be a series of questions to answer, and then we'll review them and we'll select committee members here at DEM. So we're going to look for people that want to be on the committee instead of us trying to pick people. And hopefully we don't get the same 10 parents all the time. So we're looking for some additional support. So if it's successful through the IMAC, then we will go ahead and proceed it through the other committees as well as positions become available. So Carol Lynn will definitely receive this, Sheriff. Again, thank you for your time and congratulations on retirement. Any other public comments?
Thank you.
John, this is Jeannie Freeman for the record. Do the bylaws talk about appointment to the committee, or am I thinking of a different committee?
So it says that the chief or his delegate makes the appointments to the committee.
Okay, so you can have people who apply, but then you can appoint from the applications.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you.
Good question for clarification. Any other public comments? Excellent. Can I get a motion? Because we'll close that agenda item number 12. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Jeannie Freeman for the record. I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Jeannie. Second?
Ken Quiner for the record. Second.
Ken Quinter for a second. Any discussion? No. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Have a good quarter. We'll see you again in a quarter.